I give the floor to a representative of United Nations Watch.
UN Watch supports the Middle East peace process on the path of dialogue and reconciliation. In doing so, we are guided by the goals of the UN Charter to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war, to reaffirm faith in fundamental human rights, and to ensure international peace and security. Regrettably, there are powerful forces in that region that do not share these universal values. They regard peace as a threat to their regimes and to their ideology. The enemies of peace mobilize most when they see progress in negotiations. It is no accident that following the substantial talks held this year between Israeli Prime Minister Olmert and Palestinian President Abbas, Hamas and its allies fired hundreds of rockets at Israeli civilian centers and perpetrated suicide bombings and other terrorist acts. Hamas and Hezbollah, sponsored by Iran and Syria, are seeking to destabilize the region and to undermine the efforts of the international community to bring peace. Hamas deliberately targets civilians and deliberately attacks from civilian areas. They and their sponsors bear full responsibility for the tragic casualties that ensue. They alone have the power to end the hostilities. Hamas pretends to be an innocent victim and seeks international sympathy. They orchestrate media stunts, such as when they lit candles in their parliament, even as closed curtains were hiding the bright sunlight. But I think the Palestinian president said it best. Speaking last June, as reported in the Washington Post, June 21st, 2007, President Mahmoud Abbas said that Hamas were, and I quote, murderous terrorists. Hamas is now seeking to replicate the tactics of Hezbollah, building a massive infrastructure of rockets and underground tunnels under residential buildings. In their view, if Israel does not respond, they win. If Israel does respond, they win as well. Behind these groups lies the active patronage of Iran and Syria. Iran arms and trains these groups while Syria hosts them in Damascus. Both countries are themselves engaged in the pursuit of weapons of mass destruction in violation of international law and the resolutions of this organization, and systematically violate the human rights of their own citizens. We must not allow the forces of hatred and the forces of death to defeat the legitimate hopes and aspirations of all peoples in the region for peace and reconciliation. Mr. President, the resolution before this Council today is sponsored by such countries as Sudan, Iran, and Syria. I think that speaks for itself. If adopted, the murderous terrorists, in the words of President Abbas, will gain a propaganda victory that will undermine the cause of peace. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you for the statement.